This is Just Listen, hosted by George. Today is January 22nd, 2024. I want to do a series on U.S. government policy on firearms. The law states that the Constitution is controlling, and the Second Amendment to the Constitution guarantees the right to bear arms. There are also other frameworks that the U.S. government has developed since the 20s. One of them was the National Firearms Act, the Gun Control Act, background checks under the Brady Act, and several other ones that I have talked about in previous postings. Today, to continue in the series, I want to talk about what's going on in New Mexico and the issues that are coming out according to that. So, the governor of New Mexico signed into law an emergency public health order that suspended open and concealed carry in Albuquerque. The Republicans wanted to turn that back, and they started talking about the Constitution. So that is still pending. Also in New Mexico, they have 4 bills that have been filed. So one of them is expand the state's red flag confiscation laws to allow law enforcement and health officials to report a person's potentially harmful behavior. That's one of them. Another one would allow the New Mexico Attorney General or local district attorneys to file lawsuits against the gun industry for injunctive relief and civil penalties. The other bills, it's just 2 of them left, prohibit anyone under the age of 21 from purchasing and possessing a semi-automatic weapon and increase the waiting period. I think that's important to focus on these because this gives you a barometer of what's going on in the country. Starting with that first one, Bill 27. This one was talking about reporting people if they potentially had harmful behavior. This bill, I believe, would be effective from the perspective of enforcing a federal law already that would take a gun away from somebody who you thought potentially could do harm. Now, once they clean up their act, then you could give them back their weapons. The other bill was lawsuit against the gun industry. I don't think that one is very effective because it seems like that the federal government has already given penalties to gun manufacturers to keep them from selling it to people who they think shouldn't have a weapon. So that's already in place. So New Mexico passing the same type of law really doesn't seem to make sense. The last two, prohibiting anyone under the age of 21 from possessing a semi-automatic weapon. and then waiting period on gun purchases to 14 days. Again, federal law covers that. It doesn't cover that you have to be 21. Now, I keep talking about grassroots methods of getting stuff passed nationally. The legislatures in New Mexico mean well. They don't have the legal authority to pass these laws because their opponents are going to say that the Constitution says the right to bear arms, and there are federal laws that are already in place covering most of what New Mexico is talking about. Now, the first one that I talked about actually was that public health order that temporarily suspended carrying concealed weapons. They have a pretty fair shot of maybe winning that in New Mexico. Does the governor have the authority to do an executive order? That's what the courts have to figure out. Back to the grassroots efforts. The states are allowed to gather and lay the foundation to amend the Constitution. As I stated previously in my other postings, that has to be the key. Lawmakers, ordinary people like me, we need to weigh in on this and let Congress change these laws. And there's a process to do this, that all of the states are involved, and I talked about that last time that we talked. These individual laws of trying to go against the Constitution and federal law already in place, that won't work. The courts are duty bound to turn those back to the states and tell them that they cannot proceed this way. This is Just Listen, hosted by George. Let me know what you think.